All right. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Of course, we're joined by Riley O'Brien this morning, but I wanted to get you guys kicked off. Help me out real quick and let's double check audio. I had a couple of issues this morning. I just want to make sure we're all good on your side, that you can hear me okay. Everything sounds and looks okay. The settings had to get changed again last night. Had some issues with my voice not matching the video. So if you could just drop it into the chat, let me know that you can see and hear everything okay, and then we're going to get rolling. All good. Audio's a little bit crackly. See, I knew we were going to have a problem. And I can't really fix that one on the fly, as I think that's going to be an internet issue. Eric's on vacation, Motown. He's on vacation for a couple weeks. I think he'll be back next week, Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Not real sure. But all right, let's get rolling here. Good morning, Riley. How you doing this morning, buddy?
I am doing very well. Will, how you doing, my friend?
Apparently, I'm cracked out. A little crackly on the audio here. So I'm not doing great. I'm getting kind of sick of it, honestly. But, you know, this morning we've got hot news, right? I mean, Myles Garrett puts himself on the trade block yesterday, kind of came out of left field. Something that's been tracked for a few weeks now. He was unsettled in Cleveland, and this has kind of been burning, you know, slow burn over the last few weeks. And then yesterday finally came out. Myles Garrett wants out of Cleveland. And look, I don't hate the guy for it. I'd want to get out of Cleveland too, just like everybody wanted to get out of Detroit. You know, at some point you have to put your career above all else. And I think that's exactly what Myles Garrett is doing. So we're going to talk about that this morning. And then we also have a lot of NFL news. Roger Goodell has some claims that he's made about technology and how it can or can't help the situation with the Chiefs. And then he outwardly came out and said that there's a problem. He's acknowledging that there's a problem. And I think that is the first step to admitting that there's a problem, is that you're going to talk about it. So we're going to talk about all that. We'll get into some Detroitlions news. Jared Goff potentially wants in on an NFL franchise. Amik Robertson's fired up, and we'll just keep on rolling throughout the day. So free agency, defensive line, edge, a little bit of outside linebacker talk today. It's not going to be a full segment on the defensive line this morning. Not even sure going to be able to get to all of it, but I will do a video follow-up later on today. So let's get it rolling. Riley, what do you have up for us first here on NFL news?
Yeah, we've got breaking news out of Los Angeles. They're just getting rocked. I mean, they had a Luka Doncic trade the other night, which was shocking news. And then for the football world, Cooper Kupp. Now, we had heard rumors that, you know, they were maybe going to consider trading him during the season. You know, they started 1-4 last year, and then around the trade deadline, there were those rumors. But they ultimately stuck it out. Cooper missed some games with injury, but took the field again. But he just didn't have the same impact that we were used to seeing. And then yesterday it was announced he's been informed by the LA Rams that they are putting him on the trade block. And he made a statement saying, "I was informed that the team will be seeking a trade immediately and will be working with me and my family to find the right place to continue competing for championships. I don't agree with the decision and always believed it was going to begin and end in LA. Still, if there's one thing I've learned over the years, there are so many things that are out of your control, but it's how you respond to these things that you will look back on and remember." So kind of shocking news, man. I mean, Stafford's first year there, it was just, I remember when he went to LA, you know, you're looking at the roster like, dude, that's a perfect fit for him. And Cooper Kupp has an amazing 2021 season. His first year was Sean McVay's first year, so they've been together the whole way. And Cooper Kupp will be playing elsewhere, maybe Houston. We'll see where he ends up, but he will no longer be a Los Angeles Ram.
Well, Cooper Kupp. Now, he's obviously at the end, you would think, of his career. I can't remember how old he is.
32.
He's going to be 32 this year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, he's at the very end. What's the likelihood? Could you imagine Cooper Kupp in Honolulu Blue for a moment? I mean, let's think about it logistically here. You know, he was Jared Goff's primary target.
Mm-hmm.
They were roommates in 2017 in the offseason. He threw a lot of touchdown passes, a lot of big gains to Cooper Kupp. They obviously have a connection. Now, the ball's going to be coming at Cooper a little bit slower than what it was from Matthew Stafford, but I think that Goff has definitely proved himself that, he's an elite quarterback and he's an elite thrower of the football. And to bring in a guy like Cooper Kupp that you have familiarity with, I mean, do the Lions need another legit third option? Well, he would be a second option. Imagine having Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cooper Kupp, the two best over-the-middle wide receivers in the league right now, and then Jamison Williams streaking down the boundary.
Sign me up.
Exactly. Here's the thing that I would say, though. The dude is big cap hit this year, 29. Well, let's just call it 30 million. And then in 26, it's another 27 million. Could it get done? Yeah. If he renegotiated his contract, I bet you he could get it done. Now, he has a dead cap hit right now of about 30 million all in between 25 and 26. So the ensuing team, that would be trading for Cooper Kupp would clearly have to pay him roughly 60 million, or it would have to be a renegotiated contract. If Cooper would love to come to Detroit for one season, buddy, just one, 20 million, one season, I would much rather see that than anything else. But I'm still kind of partial to this Myles Garrett thing because it can work only now that he's up for trade, right? And we'll get into this in a little bit, but it can work. I'll explain why later. I explained a little bit last night. I don't know what's going on with my YouTube lately, but it's like my viewership is down for some reason. So I don't know if something happened. I don't know what I did, but whatever. We'll pick it back up. I just got to get back on the horse with the videos. So this is interesting, man. I think that if Cooper Kupp could land in Detroit, he would be highly welcomed. And I think that would give Goff everything that he needs and more. He already has everything that he needs. Imagine Cooper Kupp, though, to come down here and help us win a ship. Because, look, if something happens to Amon-Ra St. Brown, knock on wood, you don't want that to happen. But you have now a legit number 2 Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, Cooper Kupp was Amon-Ra before Amon-Ra was Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That actually makes perfect sense. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that. Because, of course, my mind, and as it does with these guys, whenever there's an announcement made like this on this scale, you start thinking, could they end up in Detroit? And Cooper Kupp would be, he'd be awesome. And he could fit his chemistry with Jared Goff. We know Jared Goff needs time usually, as most quarterbacks do, to develop a chemistry with the receivers. But if you talk about a player that could fit like a glove and fit seamlessly, yeah, Cooper Kupp would be as good as it gets.
Luxury pick is what I'm seeing in the chat comments here. Luxury pick. Yeah, it would be. It would be a luxury pickup, but so would Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's a luxury pickup. He's not a need. Myles Garrett's not a need when you think about it. We have a number 1 edge rusher, and if you guys believe that Aiden Hutchinson's going to come back and be totally fine in 2025, then Myles is a luxury pick. That is playing in Madden. Either way, Cooper Kupp or Myles Garrett, it's like playing Madden. You're stacking the deck. We really don't need a dominant, top 10 defensive end with Aiden. I mean, Myles is top 1 in my book. He's the best defensive end ever to play the game, at least in my lifetime. You had a few others. There's a few others.
Aaron Donald.
Well, Aaron's defensive line, defensive tackle. I'm talking about edge guys, Reggie White comes to mind, but he was more of a defensive tackle too. So, I mean, there's plenty others. But anyway, Cooper Kupp's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. Look, if he wants to renegotiate and wind that contract down to a very friendly deal, then I think he'd probably stay in LA. But that's not what LA is trying to do. They want to reset their deck, and you know what? This could mean we might see a total reset in LA, and maybe Matthew Stafford's also out. And
that's the other angle for sure.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, you were going to say something.
No, as you bring that up, because when the season ended, he's 37 now, and the rumor is he done playing? Is he going to stay? Well, he came out and said he's planning on playing, but then it's up in the air whether or not that's going to be in LA. Does this impact that decision? Obviously, Puka Nacua is their number 1. They could, reshuffle the deck, but you never know. You never know what it indicates if they're going to, get rid of Cooper Kupp and then do something different at quarterback. It'd be interesting to see where Stafford would be playing next year if it's not in LA. But
I don't think Stafford's going anywhere. I think that if he's put up on the trade block. He'll retire before that even happens. I think LA would give him the courtesy of saying, "Hey, I'm going to retire. I'm not going through another trade." But Matthew Stafford has been, talking about retirement this year already. His wife kind of brought it up. Go figure. And I mean, he's had a hell of a career. He's got a Super Bowl win, and is it going to happen again? Probably not. I don't know that LA has enough right now. I think that their defense is looking mighty good, and they're probably close. You definitely need a guy like Stafford to do it. I don't know of another quarterback in the NFL right now that would be able to go to LA and help them win, unless they're thinking that they're going to bring in Donald, which, I mean, he sees ghosts. So probably not a good move. But anyway, what's next?
Yeah, so we also had a kind of a interesting one here. So Roger Goodell, so NFL is considering a rule change which would implement the usage of replay on face mask penalties. Now, this last year, the big one that comes to mind, if you guys recall, was the Rams-Vikings game that was played in LA at SoFi Stadium, where Sam Darnold got face masked in the end zone on a potential game-winning drive, was missed. There were a bunch of missed face mask calls. And so one of the things that up until this point, they haven't been able to change anything based on what the review shows. Roger Goodell says, "We want to use technology to supplement and support officials in getting it right. I see us in the future adding more plays to replay review like face masks. They don't have time to go back and look. They've got to make a snap decision." So Mark Mask sent out a tweet saying, "Roger Goodell reiterates that the NFL will consider adding the face mask violations and other penalties to the replay assist system." So could potentially slow the game down more, but the last thing I can only imagine the pain I'd feel if Goff had been face masked or shooting the playoff game when he that pick six that shouldn't have been, right? Should have been called back. So sounds like they are considering the avenue of using replay assistants to review those and make sure that they get it right. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but would at least to help with getting the calls correct.
So just for clarity, the pick six would have stood. It would have just been a 15-yarder on the kickoff.
Is that all?
Yeah, it would have been, because the play happened after the pick. So you have to go in successive order. Pick happens, then the hit happens. So it would have stood. It's just we would have had really good field position on the next possession after the kickoff. So
yeah,
probably would have been close. Yeah, it would have been really close, if not beyond the 50-yard line. But yeah, it does help with those things, and I think that they have to do replay assist. I think that any time that, they're supposed to be doing it already, right? The Sky Judge is supposed to be reviewing anything that looks off. When someone stands up and they stumble, that's when that all started. That was coming from upstairs. Hey, that player got rocked on the field. There wasn't a flag, but he needs to come out and be checked for concussion. I haven't seen that really happening a whole lot. We're not seeing guys getting pulled from games and going to the tent and being evaluated, unless it's been, a really big hit where these guys are just laid out, that they're coming off the field anyway. So they're supposed to be using this Sky Judge. And you guys have seen me outline, I did the 49er bounty gate. I know it's not really a bounty gate. It's just a play on words, right? But it's, were they charged up, prior to the game, telling each other, hey, we're gonna inflict pain on these guys any way we can. And you heard, what they were saying in the pregame. I'm gonna put my hat on his, or my helmet on his chin, or my forehead on his forehead, and make him limp. We want to make him feel pain. Well, I mean, there's football, right? And the hits that come with football, and then there's intentional trying to injure. And I felt like that 49er game, they were intentionally trying to injure us. Same thing in the Commanders game. There was so many helmet-to-helmet contacts in that game that were not called. And to your point, right, how many of those plays get extended? How many of those 3-and-outs or 5-and-outs or 6-and-outs or whatever get extended because of the helmet-to-helmet contact that is called, and now the Lions get 15 yards and fresh downs? That game is much tighter. How much tighter is that game versus the Commanders had Louvu been ejected? There's so many scenarios that should have happened but didn't happen. And like I said after that game, cheaters don't win. And Washington got boat raced. And they got boat raced the next week because, whatever happened the week before shouldn't have happened anyway. The Lions should have won that game. We played like crap anyway. But yeah, I think that it's imperative that the NFL gets this right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you read that. I think that's very well said. Roger Goodell saying, they don't have time to review it. They got to make sense. What are we in such a hurry for? Right. It seems like there's so, I remember the first time I went to an NFL game and Justin Treese from Talking Football is telling me, because he had gone to one before I did. He's like, dude, you're going to be blown away how often it seems like half the time you're just waiting for the ball to get snapped. They're going to a TV timeout. It drags out, but you want the calls to be correct. What are we in such a hurry for? Let's get it right.
Yeah, let's get it right. And okay, you slow the game down a little bit. What does that do for them? Does a couple of things. They're going to get more ad money because they're going to play more commercials, right? And then those commercials cost money. Let's say it the other way. Let's say that they have to buy more airtime. Well, okay. Did you lose an extra $1 billion because you bought a bunch of airtime for 32 teams and all their games? Oh boy, a big billion for the NFL. Like, they don't make enough billions every single season. So much so that every team was just given a check for almost $500 million this last season in 2024 after the 23 season as profit. $500 million to every team. $16 billion that went out in profit. That's just from ads, revenue sharing. There's so much more beyond that. And when you look at that mark, that $500 million, well, they're only spending 265 on the cap, and then whatever they're spending on their other coaches and operating cost. I mean, there's no way they're not making money. They're making money hand over fist. They're swimming in it. So just get it right. If they would just get things right, I think that the fan base, I think two things happen. I think that the fan base finally comes around, and we'll always find stuff to pick at. That's just the human nature. But I think the other side of that is now maybe the fan kind of enjoys the game a little bit more. Maybe they, I guess the third thing would be maybe they like all this clicky baity stuff. Maybe they want all of these narratives out there because it sells media. Maybe they like that stuff. I don't know. I mean, everyone's writing about it. So if it kind of goes away, well, maybe people lose their jobs. There's not as much stuff to write about anymore. I mean, I for sure wouldn't be able to put out about 20 videos a year talking about this stuff because today's a lot of it. Matter of fact, Roger Goodell, he came out yesterday, and this is how I feel about this. I spoke to you earlier off air, Riley, that when you address a major concern like this, I think that there's two ways that you're going about it. You're either in defense of something and you need to stand up and defend yourself, or there's clearly something going on and you're just kind of, I don't know, putting it out there and you're kind of letting people know that, yep, there is a problem. You're not really saying that there's a problem, but you're saying that there's a problem. And Roger Goodell slammed this ridiculous theory yesterday around the Chiefs ahead of the Super Bowl and saying that the Chiefs' performance has been more scrutinized in weeks than ever before, the most recent weeks than ever before, and that Roger Goodell attempted to dismantle any notion of favoritism of the officials towards the Kansas City Chiefs. And he did this on Monday's pre-Super Bowl press conference. And I do have the video, and I do want to bring it in. But Goodell was asked about the theory of NFL officiating, and which stems from the insinuation that the Chiefs are on the receiving end of favoritism or favorable calls during the games. And it came to light, obviously during the playoff win over the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills. Major egregious missed calls, no calls, bad calls. It's been happening all season, but more so with the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been on the receiving end for a very long time. So let me first start with this. Make sure I have this thing dialed up here, because what I don't like is, I just don't like how they try to paint all these scenarios like nothing's happening here. There's something happening, because everybody came out and saw that Allen got the first down. I think that we already know that. So let's take a look at what happened there. let's take a look at what happened on this first down that wasn't first. Let's start with that. So let me bring that in. Okay, so this is the 3rd and 3, fourth quarter. You guys should have audio on this. So let me hit play. All right, we're not doing any Captain Morgan highlights for you or ads. But you know, how can you not see from multiple angles here? And credit to John Boy here on Twitter for doing this work. How could you not see from all these angles that on both those plays, the 3rd and 3 and the 4th and short, that Allen, they both got the first down. Mm-hmm. What I took out of this is that Allen had balls on both sides of his chin. Just saying, I don't have the drum roll thing, you know, but I'm just saying, John Boy said that Allen had balls on both sides of his chin. I thought that was kind of funny. I'm pretty sure he said that for a reason. You know, I just feel like the NFL has really got to get this stuff right. And this goes into a whole nother segments, you know, scenario of how do you fix it? Right? Mm-hmm. How do you fix it? Well, Goodell had this to say about how you fix it. And it's let me just bring this part in too. Let me bring in his video of him at the press conference. Make sure I get this one lined up right. Sometimes the sizing just doesn't work. Here we go. 1 second. So Goodell is at the press conference prior to the Super Bowls on Monday night, and he's talking about this scenario of scripting and you know what people are calling for is the egregious mishandling of the Chiefs, and that the Chiefs are receiving all this favoritism. How do you fix it? And talking about using technology. How can technology fix the problem? So controversial ball spotting, right, in the AFC Championship game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Well, we just reviewed that. It's invited plenty of criticism across the league amongst all the fans. And, of course, it's a big topic heading into this week's game where a lot of us are expecting the same thing to happen. So Buffalo's final offensive play, obviously the failed attempt, the conversion on the 4th and 5, just under 2 minutes left in the game. It received a ton of attention, and it should have. And so even Sean McDermott came out after that, and he said, quote, "I thought he had it. Just short of the line was actually the first down." Both of those plays and both of those replays showed they got it. What it looked like to me is it was sitting next to me with the marker. I'm sorry. What it looked like to me when it was sitting next to me with the marker, just inside that white stripe was a first down, and it looked like he got it. That's all I can say. He wasn't obviously going to go in, you know, and completely trash the refs and all that, because obviously he'll get a fine, which we have seen come out over the past couple of weeks that players were fined on the Texans for coming out and saying, you know, these things about the refs, which, hey, they should have. But controversial ball spots is what this is all about. How do you fix it? Well, they've had this technology to measure the ball utilizing GPS and lasers and everything else. And I've heard Roger Goodell come out and say, well, it doesn't work. Like, it can't work. There's no way that you can remove the human element from this. Well, we understand that you need a human element. You need the ref to spot the ball. It's not like we have drones flying around spotting the ball for us. That part has to stay. But what can happen, and I said this the other day, if you already have the chips in the ball anyway, so all you have to do is put a chip at the front of the ball, the middle of the ball, and the, both ends of the ball in the middle of the ball, and it triangulates. And that sends a signal, and that signal is captured throughout the stadium, and it will tell you exactly where that ball is. Now, you still need the human element to kind of stop the play where forward progress happened, right? I mean, you would agree with that, wouldn't you, Riley? That you still need that at least.
100%.
So between video review, the human element, and now technology, there's no way that you can really get these things wrong, because all you need is a trigger, right? And that trigger would be, okay, the ball crossed this imaginary line. We know it crossed the line on first down. Then you go back and you can replay and say, well, where did the ref call forward progress? Or did they even stop the play? If they didn't stop the play, then wherever that ball went is where it belongs, at its furthest increment towards, going forward progress. That's where it belongs. That's where it should be downed. But let's listen to Roger Goodell and what he had to say about it, because in my opinion, I still think this dude is just full of bull. You know what I'm saying? He's just always full of bull. Hold on. You guys can't hear Roger right now? Did you hear the first one? Did you hear the first one with the guy doing the review of the ball spotting? Well, what the hell? You should be hearing it. Here, let me try this. Maybe I should actually turn it on. Why did it just disappear?
Yeah,
Right.
Kevin Barr says, man, they even silenced the podcast. Goodell's reach is amazing.
All right, here we go. Let's try this again. Who knows? It could get hit. Let me check my email real quick.
Yeah, check it.
No, we're good. We're good. All right, let me do this. Let me get back to this one. Actually, I'm going to wind it all the way back to, I want to wind it back to this guy, since you guys didn't hear it. Let me wind back to this guy and make sure that you guys can hear it this time. All right, here we go.
3. Fake the inside handoff, go outside, get the first. Okay, they didn't get it by half a yard. Okay, QB sneak and pushed him over the line. No. Breakdown is brought to you by Captain Morgan, and they say they stopped him. I made the Chiefs player invisible. See that pylon behind? Let's just drag that down a little bit. I've got the head of the football over that dang line. Josh Allen in yellow to make it easier. And he's, okay, is he over the line here? You go from the line and then just, up this dude's butt and up the line. And he looks like he's there. Well, you don't know where the ball is. Well, we do know where the ball is. It's kind of dead center. It's right under his chin, right? And that line, we're just going to ride that straight up. Where's his chin? The ball's under his chin. The ball's on both sides of his chin. I got first down. And then here's the other angle. And, that one looks like he's, his butt's over, his head's over, the ball's over. It's actually the first spot that was more egregious. You did all the science on the second spot. The first spot, the 3rd and 3. Oh, you're right. Because the official probably thought his knee went down, but his knee was not down. See, they probably thought his knee was down there, so he marks it there, but his knee was not down, and he's able to actually switch the ball and get it out by the time his elbow goes down. Ball lands, he's on the line. Breakdown was brought to you by our good friends at Captain Morgan. When you and your crew follow the captain.
All right, that's where we get rid of that. All right, so let's go to this next one. So this is where, everything that I just explained. So now you heard the balls reference to the chin. Now you get what I'm saying. I'm not just some weirdo. Anyway, credit to John Boy on that. Now let's listen to Roger Goodell lie to us some more.
First downs, I'm sure you guys are working on that some way.
We have. We tested, I think, in the preseason this past year on being able to use that technology. It is complicated. Obviously, you have a lot of humanity that interferes potentially with some of that, at least from a camera angle standpoint. But you also have a shape of the ball that is different, and it's about where the ball is, not where the individual is necessarily. So there are a combination of factors are there, but I do think that technology will exist sometime in the future. We're continuing a lot with our partners is how to advance that as quickly as possible so we can get to that place.
Are you working?
Okay, so we know a couple of things. Roger's full of crap, and he's backtracking here, right? He is trying to get in front of this before the Super Bowl because he's admitting that there's a problem. And this is what he said. He said that Goodell dispelled the idea of, quote, this sort of reminds me a little bit of the script, right? That I write a script and I have a script for the entire seasons. I think a lot of those theories are things that happen in social media and then they get a new life. Nobody wants it to be their theory. Well, Roger is the one that did a commercial and spoke about the script. That really turned up the volume. When he went on and did that commercial and mentioned a script and they're passing it around and all the players are reading it, you didn't help yourself, buddy. You didn't. So, of course, you just flamed this major story and these tinfoil hat wearing, conspiracy theorists that you think that we are. No, we have video evidence of what's going on. We can clearly see it, whether we're in the game where you don't have the ability to cut short and go to commercial. We have cameras. We can take video. We can see it for ourselves. And you better believe that in every third and fourth and short situation, my camera's up. I am taking as much video as I can. And I have so much video that I don't even use. But then he goes on to say this. He says, I understand it. I think it reflects a lot of the fans' passion. I think it's also a reminder for us and how important officiating is. I think the men and women officiating the NFL are outstanding. I think that they are too. I mean, just being real here, I think that they have an incredibly difficult job. But I think that there's some, elements to this that not doing so hot on. So they have the highest possible standards. That's a ridiculous theory for anyone that might, take it seriously. But at the end of the day, it's something we always have to continue to work on. How do we make the officiating better at times? Well, I think it's simple. You need more replay. You need to utilize more replay. And to your point earlier, Riley, the replays, it's not really going to slow the game down that much. I mean, you're talking 30, 60, 90 seconds of replay. And quite honestly, someone should be replaying immediately. As soon as a play happens, they should already be replaying that. It goes down to the ref and they're like, we need 15, we need 30, we need 60, whatever. All right, now we got to stop the game. As soon as you get to the play clock, and it's running out or whatever, they haven't started the play clock, then they're going to have to stop the game for a moment if they see something even suspicious. And then he goes on to say this. If you look at the Chiefs' record, which I think it's an amazing thing, people talk about the competitiveness in our league. The Chiefs, with their 15 wins, 11 of those 15 games were within one score. I think that talks about the competitiveness of our game and the importance of how we officiate, but also the competitiveness of how we play. The Chiefs have one score wins because of the refs in a large majority of these games getting involved in throwing these flags for things that don't even exist. Like I said the other day, there's ghosts that are hitting Patrick Mahomes. And then they throw a flag and they get a penalty and it extends their downs and then they score. And I'm not saying it happens every time, but it's a large majority of the time. And then when you analyze the penalty component to this, it's not even close. Like in every single game, there is more than 10 penalties to the opponent. And not once have the Chiefs had a game with 10 penalties. So that's got to tell you something. I guess at the end of the day, Riley, what do you think on this whole thing?
Yeah, I think you were very sentient with it earlier. I think if it's a non-issue, then you can not address it, right? And it's funny he's saying like, well, they had these one-score games. It's not, and I don't know. I go back and forth with it, to be honest, but it's not like we're saying like, well, man, they're blowing everybody out. So it's a non-issue. Yeah. Like you said, it's a lot of the point is that it is these close games, that it does come down to these one or two calls that can flip a game.
Exactly.
And what did Kansas City finish? 15-2, just like the Lions?
Yeah, when you watch them play, it's like, how did they get there?
Exactly.
How did they get there? They weren't some great defensive team.
Mm-hmm. Because
I mean, they're right in the middle with sacks. If you're a sack believer and you think that sacks win championships, they're right in the middle. The Lions were only 2 sacks behind them, so that can't be the answer. Offensively, where do they finish offensively? Top 15?
somewhere. Yeah,
Right.
I'm curious on that, actually. I'm going to see.
Well, I went over it yesterday. I'm sure I still have the notes in there from yesterday. Here it is right here. Chiefs 15th ranked offense by points.
Right in the middle. Okay.
Yep. And then they were the 4th defense by allowed points per game. So if you go by allowed points, they were the 4th defense. Well, who directly inhibits teams from scoring the most? Is it the team? Is it the penalties, the refs? Is it self-inflicting? What is it? I think it's a combination of everything. But I will say that I don't think the Chiefs have this world-beating defense.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. But I do believe that the refs have stopped other teams from continuing to score. We just saw it in 2 playoff games. Let me look in the chat here. What are people saying? Brandy Coffee says he hates puppies. Probably does. They need to fix this or just admit that it's rigged like the WWE. Yeah. You know, it's funny that the NFL is listed as an entertainment business. Entertainment, just like the WWE. They should love replay because they can sell more commercials. Exactly. They can make more money off it. Peter Van Laarhoven says NFL is WWE with helmets and shoulder pads. RP says, all of these things we have seen the Lions get screwed by in the rule book. How could it not be rigged at times? Look, man, I feel your pain. Kevin Barr says refs union still hired work for the league. Do they not? So they are 1099, right? They're contractors. The refs are contractors. And look, I think that is a very significant factor to this as well. If you are a contractor and you are not part of the company, well, guess what? You can now not sue the NFL for what the refs did or didn't do. Does that make sense? If you just lost $1 million bet because the refs screwed up a call, well, you could probably get a grimy ass attorney to sue the NFL to say, hey, your refs screwed me out of $1 million because they missed this call. And you just admitted they missed that call. I want my $1 million. Well, by keeping these guys as contractors, you can't sue the NFL. Who are you going to sue? A bunch of refs? You ain't going to get your money. So I get it. John DeSange says the football should be tracked on every play. And you know what? It already is. They're already tracking the ball speed. They're tracking the direction. They're tracking the angle, the flight, everything. That's how you get all these next-gen stats. So next-gen has been putting these chips in the pads, the helmets, and the ball now for more than 5 years. So they have the technology. Kevin Barr says, cheat Pete. And Bob W. says, you would think that people who bet and Vegas would really be upset unless it's what some people use to manipulate. RP says, Mahomes is great, but he would only need a few calls to manipulate the games. Look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Mahomes either. I do think that he's an incredible quarterback. I think he's very good at what he does. But I also think that if you put just about any NFL quarterback in his shoes and gets the calls that he gets, I think a lot of quarterbacks are going to win the way that he's won. And again, I'm trying not to take anything away from him, but this is the NFL's fault for painting this picture. J. Rod says he has an odd question, but NFL players get sponsored. Do the NFL refs as well? I have no idea. I have no idea about that. And then Jack2125 says, why can't the NFL officiating be as efficient as college football? Here's the one thing that I will say that I'm in huge agreement with. You know, when Eric and I, we spent a lot of time watching some of the, UFL games this past season. Obviously, he went to a few of the games. And if you guys have not watched the games, you need to go replay, find a game to watch, a Michigan Panthers game, and look how they do the refereeing in those games. It is very open and transparent. They have the refs mic'd up, and you can hear everything the ref is talking to the coaches and everything else, how they're deciphering what happened. It is so open and transparent. If they just did that, and we had an inside look at what the refs were doing, NFL, here you go. Here's your next $1 billion idea. You sell it for $15 a month to give NFL fans the ability to listen in on every call. Hello, you just made another few $1 billion. And now you don't have to worry about rigging games to make those extra few $1 billion. It's that simple to me. Anyway, go ahead on what you think so far, Riley, and then I'm going to go into one more segment on this.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of right in agreement with you. I was thinking that. I'm glad you read that comment from Jack 2125 because I was really curious on, if the officiating is as efficient as it is in college football. I pay attention to one college football team, mainly the Utah Utes, and I don't know. I think you've kind of hit everything on the head with this. Certainly, it's the NFL is never without drama, right? It kind of seems scripted at times, no doubt.
It does, and I think that when you're admitting fault to something, when you're admitting that there's a problem, this is what happens. And the fact that Roger said that they've already been testing these components even this past preseason. Well, isn't that recognizing that there's a problem? Fix it. If you've already tested it, why have you not implemented it? They should have been testing this entire season, not just the preseason. This should have been on the sideline every game, because then they would have all this metadata to go back and look and say, how could we have made that call better? How could we have been more transparent?
And if you're not implementing it, explaining why you haven't yet. Right?
Exactly.
What you've learned, what you've gathered so far, data wise, just keep everybody in the loop. But they know. I mean, it's just like people saying, like, I'm boycotting the Super Bowl. I'm not going to be watching this. They'll be there. NFL knows we're all going to be, tuned in and watching. But
it's the best drug in the world, man. I'm telling you, football is the only drug for me. Outside of really good Honolulu Blue coffee. If you guys haven't ordered yours, I will be getting boxes out today. I apologize, I've been a little bit late. Matter of fact, if you've ordered one, I'm going to probably be sending two just to make sure you guys are good to go. So his quote here is: the system, which the NFL has tested in game conditions in recent seasons, would involve the football being spotted manually by the on-field officials before the electronic system would determine whether that spot resulted in a first down. It's exactly what I said earlier, that you can't take the human element out. You still need the ref to spot the ball, but that chip is going to triangulate. If you can tell where a cell phone is right now, if the government can find me and find my phone right now within 1 inch of where I sit, I think you can spot a football. Pretty positive you can. So let's stop the BS. I want this fixed by 2025 season. I do. And you know what? It may hurt. Here's the other thing that I'm going to say that needs to get fixed. How many times, Riley, do we see in a game where a player catches a deep pass? It looks a little funny. Maybe the ball was bobbled and it probably wasn't a catch. And they hurry up back to the line and they get the ball snapped. Well, now you can't review it.
Yep.
That needs to stop. To me, if you are worried about competitiveness and competitive fairness, then that to me is probably the more egregious thing that happens outside of the refs, because you know that you didn't catch that ball. These players, they give signals to the sideline on a play line. I know this for a fact because I was told by a player. They give a signal to the sideline that says, I didn't catch that ball. I was out of bounds. I bobbled that ball. That wasn't a catch. Once that signal goes to the sideline, they're on it. The signals are already in. They're already into the helmet, and it's get down, snap the ball, move on. Sometimes they get the play off. I'd say 90% of the time they get the play off before replay can catch up. That play shouldn't exist. There should be a definite amount of time between the ball being spotted and the ball being allowed to be hiked, especially on a play that involves a first down. I mean, I don't know how you would differentiate unless it's all plays. If it's at least a ball that involves a first down, that you have enough time. Now, where this could be a problem is in the final few minutes of a game. Because if you're trying to hurry up and get down and not utilize the clock, try to maintain your clock, well, this is where you could have that problem. And so I think that, maybe every play would have to get reviewed in the final 2 minutes. Not just scoring plays, but every play. So that one is going to be a little bit more finicky. That one's going to take a lot more work, I think, to try to figure out. But I think the broad brush approach here is you need to limit these teams from making that play happen. I've seen too many teams get screwed because later you go back and find out that wasn't a catch. And then they just went and won a game that they shouldn't have won.
Yep. all because they hurried to the line and hurried and snapped the ball and got it. You understand why the offenses are doing it, but yeah, like who's the one that has to make the change on that?
I mean, it has to start with the NFL. It has to start with Roger.
Yeah, exactly. Just come out and say, okay, we got to stop and get this right. Because, yeah, when everyone's rushing and hurrying, they're telling you that something's been communicated. There's a reason they're doing that. And everyone, you know, if it's your favorite team with the ball, go, 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 go. And if you're on defense, you know, you're pissed if that ball gets snapped.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so up next is going to be the hottest news of the cycle, right? Since last night that the right, the left shoe and your pants all dropped at the same time. Myles Garrett. He is now put himself up for trade. Now there's been some conflicting stories here. We're going to try to clear some of it up. And we're going to do all that when we come back from a quick ad break from one of our sponsors. Better the Hunt Technologies and C3 Mitts, the ultimate hunting and multi-use glove system for hunters and outdoor enthusiasts. Now, C3 Mitts are designed to keep your bare hand protected and warm no matter what the weather throws at you. The patented attachment system was designed to keep your hand on target with the ultimate feel of comfort, confidence, and control. The triple layer barrier of moisture wicking material combined with 200 grams of thin-slit insulation locks in the heat, but not the moisture. That hot hands pocket adds extra heat when the temps dip below freezing. Rain or snow, no problem for C3 Mitts. The durable outer shell is water resistant and windproof, shielding your hands from the elements. C3 Mitts has solved the cold, stiff, and shaky hand syndrome that all hunters have faced, causing you to miss opportunities on your hunt. Whether you're stalking your prey, chopping wood, or simply enjoying a winter's day, C3 Mitts have got you covered. So this winter, keep your hands warm and your adventures going strong with C3 Mitts. C3 Mitts, warmth, comfort, confidence, and control. I guarantee it, or your money back. Make sure you visit c3mitts.com right after the show. Okay, so I do have some audio from the insiders last night. I did not prepare a graphic or anything. It's about 3-4 minutes long. But let's listen to Garrett, Ian Rappaport, Judy Batista for just a few minutes here and what they had to say about this breaking news from last night. And then what Joe Barry said, Cleveland Browns, and Myles Garrett. And then I have the top 10 teams of where Myles Garrett would probably land if this actually gets pulled off. Here we go.
Mike Garafolo, Ian, again, this is not something that was new today from the Browns, but does not sound like this is a money issue here. This is a guy who simply wants to be playing elsewhere in 2025.
This is a Myles Garrett wants to play for a championship contender issue, and you're right. This has been bubbling for a couple weeks. Myles Garrett very publicly said at the end of the season, wanted to sit down with Browns brass, wanted to hear their plan moving forward, and really try to fix how to fix their situation where they are in. Went from one of the better teams in the NFL this year, of course, to one of the worst, picking number 2, and all that comes along with it. A couple days go by, and Myles Garrett privately tells the team that he requests a trade, and then it all went public today, and everybody went crazy. But the reality is, a player this good, reigning Defensive Player of the Year, All-Pro, Pro Bowler in his prime, these guys are never available and never get traded. Andrew Berry has said very publicly he does not intend, Judy, to entertain offers, but there is no doubt teams are going to call putting the Browns to a decision.
Yeah, I would assume 31 teams are going to place that call and just find out, like, are you sure? Are you sure you're not going to move him? Listen, I can't help but think that this is the fallout, certainly unintended fallout of the Browns being tied, having their hands tied to Deshaun Watson for so long. That contract, as we know, bound them to him. They stuck with him as the starter for a long time. When it was clear it was not working, they wasted a lot of seasons there, and they've wasted a lot of Myles Garrett seasons there. And here is him saying, like, I'm not going to waste any more seasons. I don't want to waste any more seasons. I want to win. The subtext of that is he does not think that team is close to winning. Right. Certainly, he wants out. He doesn't think they're on the cusp of turning this around. But I can't help but think of all of the seasons that they stuck with Deshaun Watson because of that contract, because of what they gave up in the trade, has now cost them Myles Garrett, potentially cost them Myles Garrett.
I find this to be a fascinating situation because the Browns lost a lot of money and a lot of draft capital with the move to get Deshaun Watson. You can get a lot of that stuff back by trading Myles Garrett. Problem is, the general manager and the coach that were on staff when they got Deshaun Watson aren't the ones that are looking at the long term. They're looking at the now, right? They had a disappointing season. We talked about how these guys were never really on the hot seat this year, but another season like that, and we might be having a different conversation. So to stay out of that kind of record, you want Myles Garrett around. It's why Andrew Berry rebuffed people at the trade deadline in the fall. It's why he has indicated that he does not intend to have any conversations, let alone trade Myles Garrett. Doesn't intend to have any conversations. And my understanding is that's where it stands even after Myles Garrett's statement today. Look, this can only end one of three ways. Myles Garrett's playing for the Browns in 2025, Myles Garrett's playing elsewhere in 2025, or Myles Garrett retires. Let's throw out three for now. One or two means one of these two is going to come off their stance. I got a feeling this is something that's going to dominate the conversation on the insiders and elsewhere on NFL Network as we get through the offseason.
Probably right.
Remember, Myles Garrett has 2 years and I believe about $45 million left on his contract. It's a deal that the
What a
market
terrible
has
audio clip.
vastly outpaced in recent years here. So the Browns' plan all along, as Andrew Berry has said, is we're going to pay him, we're going to keep him here. He's going to be a Brown for life. They would upgrade his contract. But again, this is not a money thing with Myles Garrett. So to Mike's point, this may take a while. You think about where the pressure points arrive anytime you've got a standoff like this between a team and a star player. There's one around the start of free agency, right, Ian? There's another one around the draft because that's the last time you can be trading, in this case, 2025 draft picks as opposed to future draft picks. And then if it goes this far, you're talking about a mini camp holdout, which is not much money, a training camp holdout, which is substantially more money. A lot of it comes down to how do the Browns play this and how does Myles Garrett and his agent play this?
So you're right. I mean, for me, this is really like, do they trade Myles Garrett before the draft? And if they do, then it's going to include, obviously, 2025 NFL draft picks. If they don't, and there certainly are some people, including our good friend Daniel Jeremiah, who think maybe next draft will be better than this draft, do they wait till the start of the season and it's 2026 and 27 draft picks? There's a lot at stake here, and we have plenty of time to sort it out.
Yeah, it's only February 2nd. Also, it's worth saying he wants to win, so presumably he's going to want to go to a contending team, a team that's on the cusp of...
Okay, I apologize about the audio clip there. I can't believe a professional, extreme high professional group would have that much background noise during their take. Like, there's got to be a way that they could filter that stuff out. So I apologize about that. But there's some things to take away from this, right? The insiders talking about it, lending their expertise on what's happening here. And the first thing that I wanted to point out from this audio clip is something that I've been talking about for months. Why Brad Holmes has not brought in the most elite of elite players. Ian said it best. He said these players are never available. They are never traded. It's funny because Brad Holmes said the same thing, and he said it multiple times. Even when we brought in Zadarius Smith, he said the same thing this past offseason when he closed the season for us in his postseason press conference. These guys aren't available. There was a handful of non-starters that we thought could start that were available. None of the starters are available. And by starters, that means Myles Garrett and the guy starting on the other side. Or it could just be the top 32 starters in the league that are just never available. And I would probably lend to agree with the latter there, that it's the top 32 starters in the league that are usually just not available. But more importantly, it's probably the top 10. And that's obviously where Myles Garrett lives, is he's in the top 10. Couple of things that came out, in Garrett's message. First thing, like I said yesterday, did he... What's that? Riley? Riley, can you not hear me?
My audio go?
No, I can hear you. Anyway, the first thing that came out...
audio went out, I'm sorry.
Yeah, are you good now?
What the hell?
All right, while he's figuring that out, I'll bring him back here in just a minute. One second.
I can hear you now. Sorry.
You're good now?
I have no idea what the hell happened there. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, you're good now. So one thing that came out in his message was he kind of used Andrew Berry's words against him when Andrew Berry said going straight from Cleveland to Canton. And Garrett came out and said the plan was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. He doesn't want to go to Canton without a Super Bowl ring. And so utilizing his words against him, I think that was a direct attack against Andrew Berry to say, look, I want out. I want out now. The thing that I think that makes this decision easier for Andrew Berry and the Browns is you just had the absolute worst contract in NFL history with Deshaun Watson. A fully guaranteed was a $240 some odd million deal. The guy's played like a half a season of snaps. He's had some of the worst stats in the NFL since this all went down. A lot of us thought that Deshaun Watson must have some paper on the NFL, and that's how that deal got done, because I'm sorry, with everything that he's been through, he shouldn't even be in the NFL. That's just my personal take. You can get a lot of that back. That was the other thing that was stated by these insiders. You can get a lot of this back. This would be a very smart move for the Browns to step away from Myles Garrett, give him what he wants, and at the same time, you are going to start digging yourself out of this giant hole that you just dug yourself into. With all that, Riley, when this news broke yesterday, I didn't have a chance to talk with you about it or, have you come on yesterday. What went through your head when you saw this news?
Just how rare it is. You made mention of that too. And I know you jumped as soon as I saw the news. I was at work, and then I had the notification. Will's already on it. He's going live and talking about it. And it's just, this is the type of move that could totally reboot your franchise. It's very much like what happened when Stafford wanted out of Detroit, but you go to see the difference because that was behind closed doors. They made an agreement. Hey, we're going to look to find you a new situation that will be a winning situation for you. And then it's already been reported that the Browns have come out and said, no, we're not trading him. So they're not on the same page. And that just goes to show how rare it was with Stafford's deal with the Lions. They were understanding and they accommodated him. This is going to be super interesting because these players of caliber, like the caliber of Myles Garrett, very rarely hit the open market. And so you start looking at what's the asking price. A few first rounders, 2 first rounders, maybe. Somebody's got to pay up. But yeah, this is just uncharted territory, I feel like. And for Deshaun Watson, his contract absolutely plays into this. Just a mess for the Cleveland Browns. It's a situation that I would not want to be in. I'm glad I'm not a Cleveland Browns fan. I recognize I'm a Lions fan, but it's a hell of a lot better than being a Cleveland Brown fan, I feel.
We've kind of been one of the same for many decades. There's a lot of parity between the Lions and the Browns, and we're finally on the other side of it, right? And at what point are the Browns going to get back on the right side of the NFL? And I think that it just takes time, but it also takes smart moves. You have to have a competent GM that is not willing to hold his team ransom over one player. The Lions weren't going to hold themselves ransom over Matthew Stafford, right? They knew that Stafford gave all he could for 12 years, and they moved on, and they got 2 first-round picks in Jared Goff.
Yep.
And those 2 first-round picks turned into multiple other picks down the line, which are now Pro Bowl, all-pro players on this team.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, if you're exactly right. And if you're Cleveland, do you not feel like Myles Garrett's done everything he can for you, right? Do you really feel like you're that close to winning a championship? Why would you hold the guy hostage? He wants out. Let him out. And I'm sure they're going to eventually. How do you can't try to talk him back in. I mean, it's a mess of a situation. Send him out, get some capital, and then start over. But then again, I don't know what reason they have to believe that they would get it right.
So if we were to revisit like the Lions trade, I mean, I think that this is going to be on the scale of the Lions Matthew Stafford trade. Sure. You've got Stafford, goes to the Rams. The Lions got Jared Goff, a 2021 third, a 2022 first, and a 2023 first. Well, in the 2021 draft, we picked up Ifeatu Melifonwu. That one didn't really shake out the greatest. But in 2022, we picked up after a few moves, wide receiver Jameson Williams and Josh Pascal. In 2023, we ended up with Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Broderick Martin. So our trade turned into Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Josh Pascal, Broderick Martin, and Fetu Melifonwu. So when people look at what Brad Holmes has done, and they question what he's done, and they question Broderick Martin, that was a free pick. You know what I mean? Like, Brad Holmes turned 3 picks and a player into 6 picks and a player. And J-Mo will be, at some point, a top-tier wide receiver in the league. Gibbs is already an all-pro in my book. Sam Laporta is already an all-pro. Josh Pascal, he's better than average. Melifonwu, average. Broderick Martin hasn't played. But you've got 4 studs that came out of that trade. Laporta, Gibbs, Williams, and Goff. You couldn't have asked for anything better than that.
You could not have.
So if Andrew Berry's going to hold his team ransom, that's not going to help him. Dude, if you were to get 2 firsts and a third in replacement for Garrett, you could totally turn that franchise around. And oh, by the way, you're going to drop 40 some odd million off of your books. You're in the hole, minus 27 million. You have about a few weeks before you have to get that on the right side of zero. This is one of the ways that you could possibly do that. Before I get into the top 10 teams, if I were to tell you that it would take this to get Myles Garrett, what would be your reaction? Tell me in the comments, obviously in the chat. Lions, we get Myles Garrett. We get a 4th round pick in 26 and a 5th round pick in 27. Oh, by the way, yes, you can go out 3 years. That's the max in the NFL. You can go out for 3 years worth of picks. That's this year, next year, and the year after. That's it. That's as far out as you can go. So we get a 4th and a 5th in successive years, 26 and 27, and we get Myles Garrett. But this is what we have to give up. We have to give up this year's 28th pick, 26's first pick in the first round, and 27's first pick in the first round. 3 first-round picks. Are you still in the boat of F them picks for a defensive end that could get hurt on play 1 of the NFL season? Riley?
No. Nope. I don't want to take away the best asset that Brad Holmes has, which is his draft picks, and especially a first-round pick. You had me at maybe 1, but once you start reading into a couple others, it's too much. It's too rich.
So I think that the problem that fans that don't dive into this stuff on the daily, there's probably 10% of the fan base, and I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying there's probably 10% of us that really get into this stuff. Really, and I'm no professional, right? I mean, I think I do a lot more than the average fan does, but that's because I have to do this every day because I love it. And I'm trying to bring good content to people. So I'm trying to give you the information. If you were to look at this from a fan's perspective that doesn't know a whole lot about the NFL or the NFL's history or trade history, you'd probably look at that and say, that's way too much, right? Now, if you look at it from the other end and you're someone that does it every single day and you work for ESPN and you're literally breaking down contracts, you're saying hell no to that trade. You're giving up 3 first-round picks for 1 player and you get a 4th and a 5th in return. Like, keep your 4th and a 5th. I don't even want it. 3 first-round picks? There's no way. But that could be what it takes to get Andrew Berry to get off of his soapbox. Because just during the Senior Bowl, he said, when he was asked about trading Myles Garrett this season, he was affirmed in his notion that, when asked, hey, did you already turn down 2 first-round picks for Garrett last year? And he said, correct. You could put that on the record. So he already turned down 2 first-round picks. That tells you it's going to take more. Or is Barry trying to play hardball? And see, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where good, savvy GMs that maybe know who Barry is or understand that the Browns are in a financial crisis. They're in cap purgatory, which I coined that term last year. I see everybody likes to use it now. It's kind of cool, right? And even in late December, he said that he wasn't going to trade Myles Garrett. And even back then in a Hard Knocks episode in January 14th, Garrett said that he had talked to Barry about getting the most out of the talent that they have there and trying not to make this a rebuild. And Garrett said that he thought, quote, "We're closer than some may think we are," meaning the team and the talent on the team. Something has changed. And something has changed because now Garrett is clearly coming out and saying this is a rebuild. And I know it's a rebuild and I want out. So something has changed within the confines of Cleveland. But what hasn't changed is Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett wants out. And he wants out because he's at the peak prime of his career. Almost to the other side of that, walking down the other side of the back end of the hill, right? He wants out. I don't shame him for that. I think that he's making, the best decisions for himself. That's what you have to do in this league. So let's get into the top 10. Top 10 here is this simple. Atlanta Falcons. Browns get the 2025 first round pick, which is number 15 overall, and the 2026 first round pick. 2025 first, which is number 15, and a 2026 first round pick, which is probably going to be in the same area. And the Falcons get Myles Garrett. Now, for 2 first round picks, I would do it. Now, making this move would be risky for the Falcons, but if an elite edge rusher is available, they have to at least get all the decision makers in a room, or obviously have a discussion. And the Falcons obviously are famously, bad at rushing the quarterback. They were 31st in the NFL in sacks this season with 31, and last in the league over the past 5 seasons. So they're just not great. They're not great at getting after the passer. But are the Falcons a competitive team right now for a Super Bowl? Riley, what do you think?
They're a hell of a lot closer than Cleveland. I would say that, I feel.
Yeah, well, when we're talking about teams that are knocking on the door.
I don't know. I don't think Atlanta's knocking on the door. I wouldn't say.
I think that if Garrett's going to go somewhere, it's going to be a team that was in the divisional or better.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm looking at. I think it's a divisional team or better. Buffalo Bills. Browns get 2025 first round pick, which is number 30. They get a second round pick in 2025, which is number 62. They get a fourth round pick, and then 2026 first round pick, and then also AJ Epinesa and cornerback Kaiir Elam. What? Like that's a ton. AJ Epinesa is a dog. I would have loved to have had AJ Epinesa on this squad this last year. So now they're giving players and picks away. So they're giving up a 2025 and a 2026 first, which is going to be a 30 this year and probably the same or similar next year. And then a second round pick in this year's draft and a fourth round pick in this year's draft and 2 players. So they're going to have to take on some cap and they're going to take on some picks. They would give up Garrett. The Browns would give up Garrett and a third round pick to Buffalo in 25 and a 6th round pick in 25. What do you think about that trade proposal? That
one I feel is realistic.
Are you able to open? I'm sorry. Were you even able to open this?
No, I was wondering if you had something linked here.
No, it's linked, but it's
let's see.
It says top 10.
New York Times. So okay, the no, it's blocking me out.
All right, here we go. That's not going to work. All right, you just got to roll with it. So anyway, I mean, that one makes a little bit more sense where you're trying to give up some players for Garrett to kind of reduce what you're giving up in draft capital, but that's a ton of draft capital. You're still giving up 2 first round picks and a second and a fourth, and you're getting back a third and a 6th. I think it's way too rich. It's way too rich, but the Bills are knocking on the door. And if they're only giving up AJ Epinesa and and Kyer Elam, now keep in mind, I haven't gone through every team to look at each team's scenario for 2025. And, are they stacked? I mean, do they have a lot of players re-signed? Can they run it back? Or are they in a situation where they need these picks, right, to reload? Or is it all in, right? You're all in. This is a kind of move for these kind of picks. Like, you are all in to get a Super Bowl. Now, keep in mind, anyone can get injured on any given day. How about the Bears? So I saw this earlier. Someone in the chat said, well, the Lions need to go out and get Garrett so that the Bears or the Packers or the Vikings don't. My answer to that would be, if they go out and get Garrett, we better go out and get a better offensive lineman. It's that simple. If you have to worry about another team and them bringing in Myles Garrett, then you just better beef up your offensive line. And I'm telling you right now, Taylor Decker's not the answer to that. He's not. And I haven't gone through the history again to look at the times that we have gone up against the Browns and what we've been able to do against Myles Garrett. I don't know what his performance has been like versus the Lions, but I will tell you that he probably won't line up a whole lot against Penei Sewell. It'll be on the other side. So if the Chicago Bears give up the 2025 first-round pick, which is number 10, and a second-round pick, number 41, and a 2026 first-round pick, the Bears simply get Garrett. So 2 first and a second. I think the theme that we're seeing here is that it's going to require 2 first-round picks. If it was just 2 first-round picks, Riley, would you give up 2 first-round picks for Garrett?
Even that, I mean, if the announcement was made that they made that trade and it was 2 first-round picks, I'd be very excited. But even that still borders on the line of, because you're looking at how much you got to pay him. You still got to keep in mind that you always talk about the roster roulette. Everyone that's on the up and up getting paid for the Lions. I don't know, man. It's one of those things, like, if it were during the season and you're bringing him in, maybe. But this is a guy that's going to get moved this offseason. So I don't know, man. 2 first-round picks. Maybe I'm crazy. It's Myles freaking Garrett we're talking about, but I'd kind of still rather have the picks.
Well, I think 2 first-round picks is that's the entry to just ring the doorbell here, right? That's the entry to pick up the phone. That you have two first-round picks you're willing to give up. Now, there was something else the insider said that, okay, there's a timeline. There's a process to this. Now, I'm utilizing, their audio, right, to kind of share something that I was going to say, just so it has a little bit of levity to it. When you enter these negotiations, you've got the start of free agency, where a lot of conversation starts. Okay, so that's the entry to what's happening with Garrett. So that's a few weeks away. It's more than a few weeks. It's like over a month away. And then you have the draft. So leading up to the draft, that's the next and last stop before you're already looking at 2026. If you can't get off Garrett by the draft, well, then you're definitely looking at 2 first-round picks for 26 and 27 at a minimum. And then it goes out to a holdout in training camp, which I don't think Garrett gives a shit. I think that he'll hold out. And he's probably already told them, I'm going to hold out. You can find me all you want. What did I say last year to the guys that held out? When they get their new contract, they get all that money back. All the money that they were fined, they get back. It happens every time. When a player holds out, they hold all the cards. Because before they come back, there was Devontae Adams. Before they come back, they've already got it renegotiated that every penny you find me, I'm getting back in this deal. So if he holds out, who cares? He'll get traded at some point. But I think that the entry level, the bar, is now on the Detroit Lions. The Browns get the 2025 first-round pick at number 28. They get a third-round pick in 2026. They get they get a 2025 first-round pick, number 28, and our third-round pick in 2025. They get 2026 first-round pick. And I don't know why this frickin' name keeps getting thrown around, but they get Hendon Hooker. Hooker is worth nothing. And I don't mean that negatively towards Hendon Hooker. Hooker's worth a lot. He's a great individual. But from a monetary perspective of his trade value,
Exactly.
He's worth nothing.
He's worth way more to the Lions than he is to anybody else at this point, right?
Exactly. And so I think I understand the thought process here is Deshaun Watson is done for the season. They need a quarterback. So what do the Browns have for options of quarterbacks? I don't even know who their backup was last year or who's even on their roster this year. They got Bailey Zapp. That's right. They got Dorian Thompson. They had Jameis Winston. And, of course, Deshaun Watson is gone. I don't know if Jameis Winston's under contract or any of these guys. I don't know if any of these guys are under contract for the Browns.
I think Winston's a free agent for sure. What did Brad Holmes say about the quarterback position? It's easier to get worse.
Easier to get worse than it is to get better. Yep.
You realize how good you have it when you've got a Jared Goff. You know, when you just listed off those the quarterback room in Cleveland, that's rough.
Yeah, so like Bob W. in here says, I think it was because it was rumored that they wanted Hooker in the Smith trade. So I will just question on where you get your information from, because Hooker has never been rumored other than by YouTubers that are always putting clickbait out. That's the only time that Hooker is rumored, just like J-Mo's getting traded. Okay, let's talk J-Mo. Lions trade Jamison Williams, 2025 first-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick for Myles Garrett. Do you do it? You got 3 seconds.
No.
Okay. See how hard that is? J-Mo's not going anywhere. Okay. No. You trade J-Mo, you trade Hendon, and you trade 2026 first-round pick, 2027 second-round pick.
No.
You kept your 25 first. Then you kept your 27 first. Okay.
No, still no for me.
What makes sense? How much are you guys willing to pay? So tell me in the comments and in the chat, how much are you willing to pay?
It's a great question. When you look at what Stafford got, but that's the quarterback. And it had to be the right situation. As good as Myles Garrett is, I mean, he hasn't made Cleveland a winner. No single player can do it by himself. But yeah, if you look at Garrett on the other side of Hutchinson or on the same line as Hutchinson, yeah, that'd be amazing. But what is Myles Garrett? How does he raise the ceiling of the team that's already really high? He'd certainly help, but not at the expense of losing first-round draft picks, a Jamison Williams, a valuable backup quarterback even as part of it. It's just too much. Peter Van Larhoven, what makes sense is no trade, and I'm with you, Peter.
Okay, so let's walk down. Let's mix this in with free agents that are available. All right, I'm going to start at the top. Khalil Mack is listed as one of the top free agents that are available. And I'm going to be very quick with this one. He's old. He plays in a 3-4 defense. He's not the Lions. Never going to happen. Number 2, Josh Sweat. He's listed as a number 2 overall free agent from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's also going to command a boatload. It won't be 2 first-round picks. Well, he'll be a free agent. My apology. But in a trade, it wouldn't take 2 first-round picks to get him. As a free agent, yeah, you're going to end up paying the dude $20+ million a year. So that wouldn't make any sense, because then if you were going to pay someone $20 million, you might as well pay Myles Garrett, right? But then again, you also have to give up a bunch of draft capital to get Myles Garrett. So then now you're back on the other side of the fence. If I really need to go all in and bring in an edge, okay, then I bring in Josh Sweat on a 3-year deal at $75 million. Probably could get it done. Probably could. But is he worth it? Is that really going to fix all the other issues that you need to fix on your defense? Probably not. Hassan Reddick, at one point I would have brought him in, but again, you're talking about a smaller outside linebacker style of play, 3-4 defense style of play. I can't imagine that the Jets are going to want to move away from him now that Aaron Glenn is there. He's going to love Hassan Reddick. They're probably going to try to keep him. So I'm out on that one. All right, how about the Raiders' Malcolm Kuntz? Well, if he hadn't suffered a season-ending knee injury before 2024 even began, and instead carried over his momentum, back from 2023, yeah, he could have been in the top 10 list. But then again, do you want to bring in a guy that is freshly injured? Another injury-prone individual? Does Kuntz even move the needle for you? Not really for me. His comparison is Romeo Okwara. I think that we're done with the Okwaras, right? I don't want another Okwara. How about Arizona Cardinals Baron Browning? Now, the Broncos traded Baron Browning ahead of the deadline to the Arizona Cardinals, a team that was in desperate need of pass rush help. And there was a logjam of good edge defenders in Denver with the recent extension of Jonathan Cooper and the continued emergence of Nick Bonito. Browning's 14.2% pressure rate over the 22-23 seasons ranked 24th among edge defenders. And he converted from off-ball linebacker to a full-time edge rusher in 22. Injuries are the only thing keeping Browning from being a consistent problem off the edge for opposing offenses. Do we want injuries?
Had enough.
All right. His closest comparison would be like a Shaquille Barrett 2019. What's up with commercials? Did you guys hit the likes? I'm sorry. Did we miss that? We've only got 57 likes, so commercials will go off when we hit about 75 likes. All right. So how about Dea Obiingbo, Indianapolis Colts? His closest comparison is the 2016 Vinny Curry. Now, he's had a steady ascent over his NFL career after he sustained an Achilles injury during the pre-draft process. But that didn't stop him past the second round of the 2021 NFL draft. So he's in a position to get his second contract. Now, his game has rounded into form over the past 2 seasons. It's headlined by 8 sacks in 23, followed by career-high 7 tackles for loss or no gain on 67% of snaps played in 24. So he's a high rotational player. Right? He's not an every down guy. He's a high rotational player, which I hope that they start utilizing Aiden in a manner like that where he doesn't have to play 90% of the snaps.
Interesting, yeah.
Not moving the needle. Chase Young, I'm sick of hearing Chase Young. He's not coming to Detroit. So here's a guy. And this is where I'm going to try to say that, I would love to have Myles Garrett. He's the only name that has ever made sense to me, but it's never made sense fiscally for me because I know that Brad, from what he's done so far, if he continues the same trend that he's done since 2021, he is not going to F them picks. The only way it works for Myles Garrett is that Aiden does not get extended this year. And then you bring in Myles Garrett because then you're shifting what you would have paid in an extension money and sign-on bonus to Myles Garrett in his contract. Myles Garrett would have to restructure his contract to make it fit within the confines of what the Lions are trying to do. So these are all very difficult hurdles. And this is why it takes so long to do. It's not easy. This is going to go on for a while. I would be surprised if we don't hear a trade at the very earliest the week before the draft. I think is probably when we would hear the first shoe drop that something's getting worked on. Probably the week before the draft. If it goes past the draft, you can forget about it. It's going to take until training camp then at a minimum. And even then, if they haven't received the right amount for Myles Garrett, he's not going to move. But here's the guy. This is the one, and this is not even an edge, really. But this is the one guy that I took a look at yesterday when all this was going down. And I'm thinking, how can the Lions add to their roster without giving up a ton? And his name is Azeez Ojulari. Now, Azeez Ojulari obviously is hitting the free agency market. He played out his rookie contract in New York. He's a Georgia product. We know that Brad Holmes likes Georgia. He's brought in some players from Georgia over the past couple of seasons. He's a very hot name right now at the trade deadline, or was a very hot name at the trade deadline of last season. He was somebody that I discussed in place of Zadarius Smith. So I would love to know, which I never will find out, what Brad Holmes thought about Azeez Ojulari back then. Now he's 24. He's 6'3", He's got 34.5-inch arms, 10.5-inch hands, so he matches perfectly to my size limits that I try to impose on players like this. He's not a true edge defender. He's more of an outside linebacker, which the Lions desperately need help at. He's only 240 pounds. No real injury history outside of an ankle and a hamstring in 2023. He lost several games to that. And then at the combine, he flew. I mean, this dude flew. He ran sub 4.6. He completely jumped out of the gym, 39.8-inch vertical. And he rated an overall 6.39, which back then was, you're going to be a starter someday. Clearly, he was a starter. Notable achievements while at Georgia. He was a second-team All-SEC in 2020 and defensive MVP of the 21 Peach Bowl. Towards the end of his college career, after an impressive showing at the Peach Bowl, which was his best game, there were a lot of eyes on him. Certainly doesn't hurt that a prospect's draft status, skyrocketed when the best game of their career was the final game of their career in college. He enjoyed a breakout 2020 season, played and started in 10 games that season, accumulated 22 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. He's very versatile. He was slated to play either outside linebacker or a defensive end at the next position, or at the next level, obviously being the NFL. But he arguably lacks some of the ideal length and height for a D end and weight, and it would require him to bulk up. Now, he obviously hasn't bulked up since he's been in the NFL. He's played at the outside linebacker position, and it served him well. Keep in mind, he has not played every single down, every single game. He's missed quite a few games. And that's why this is a more unique opportunity for the Lions. Here's an NFL overview. He's a full-grown 3-4 outside linebacker with NFL-ready strength and impressive explosiveness. Now, the one thing that I will say is normally you don't take a 3-4 outside linebacker into a 4-3 system. But Ojulari is better in pursuit than he is as an edge setter. What did we need the most last year? We needed a linebacker that could cover. He's quick to slide off a block, either making a tackle or accelerating to pursue in space. He's very quick to close down the gaps. His ability to attack pulling blocks and shutting down potential running lanes, obviously fun to watch on tape. He has quality pass rush burst, very loose limbs, but he has some limited number of pass rush moves, which under the right guidance, he could develop some more pass rush moves. This far into his career, you'd kind of wonder why hasn't that really been developed? Well, some of it's the teacher. Ojulari hasn't really learned to set up blockers yet. That will come. Great strength. I mean, football character, explosiveness, athleticism, all the check marks, they're there. He really won't reach his full potential, in my opinion, until he cultivates these pass rush talents and learns to stay separated, from the rest of the group there. Strengths, I mean, he's built like a superhero. Broad chest, muscly arms, tapered waist. I mean, just a complete physical freak. Very humble teammate, according to his teammates. Tremendous football character and IQ. Checkmark Brad Holmes. First freshman in Kirby Smart era to be named a team captain. Brad Holmes checkmark. Aggressive play demeanor, has NFL starter written all over it. Dan Campbell checkmark. Charges into pulling guards like a battering ram, stopping them dead in their tracks. Everybody checkmark. Very good upper body twitch and strength to unhin and shed blocks. Again, everybody checkmark. Contact balance to absorb blocks and maintain his base. That's probably one of the most critical things that you can have as an outside linebacker or an edge. Lightning quick playing off blocks, making athletic tackles. Again, check. Gifted change of direction to follow the flow of play. God, we missed that last year. Will alter rush tempo to lull tackles to sleep. Who would have thought that you change up the tempo instead of just going 100 miles an hour all the time, that maybe you throw a curveball, maybe you throw a slider, maybe you throw an off ball, and then you go back with a fastball. Pretty smart. Power chop, swivel hips, very greasy to flip the edge. Dude's incredible on tape. Leverage and power to capture and collapse at a tackle's edge. I mean, his strengths they just keep on going and going and going. This is just from watching some of his tape. He has some weaknesses like everybody does. He's very strong, but he is undersized as a true edge. But we need an outside linebacker. He doesn't play with the desired knee bend to help him anchor and slide around the side like we would see with James Houston at times. I don't think we always need that from somebody like that. We need an outside linebacker. He will need to get off centered blocks more quickly. He does limit his go-to move as a pass rusher. He does give away a rush plan prematurely, so he will have to identify some pause, some patience. Rarely threatens tackles with quality counters. You can learn that. You can learn some hand fighting techniques. Relies primarily on a stuff and run attack to try to find the edge. So if you were reading this, Riley, if you're reading this about a potential free agent that is only 4 years into the system, what would your quick judgment or evaluation be based on what the Lions are missing? Because we don't really have anybody signed past this year other than Jack Campbell. We've got injuries up the wazoo in the linebacker room, and we don't really have a good coverage linebacker. So if you're switching from, okay, we can't get Myles Garrett, it's too much money, but what can we bring in? How does this start to stack for you?
I was sold completely about a third of the way through what you were saying. And it just got more and more. I'm like, sold. It's a perfect fit. And you spelled out why. You have to have the complementary player. We talk about the person as well. But what you could get out of him, you can get, he's not Myles Garrett, right? But you can get, what would you say, 70% of the production, maybe not 70%, but as a complementary piece to the players that we already have, versus the cap that we've got available, I think that he would be a perfect fit. Actually, I'm expecting him in Detroit now based off of what you've spelled out.
I mean, I would love to see it. Injury history, like I said, he's played just in 18 of 34 regular season games. So his body's still pretty fresh. He hasn't gone through all the car crashes. But he suffered this calf injury in training camp of 2022. So he lost weeks 1 and 2 there. Then he suffered an ankle and a quad injury, and he lost weeks 5 through 11. And then he was inactive for week 18. He played in just 7 games in 2022. He did finish, though, in 7 games with 5.5 sacks. In 23, he had an ankle injury that cost him weeks 2 and 3. He had a hamstring injury that cost him weeks 6 and 9. And he was limited to just 11 games, only finished 2.5 sacks that year. Kind of a down year for him. But then in 2024, he was out weeks 13 through 18 with a toe injury. And somehow, through the first 12 games of the season, and I think there was a bye week in there, so it might have been 10 games, 11 games of the season, he still had 6 sacks and 7 TFLs for a guy that played less than half the season, or right around half the season. Those are good numbers to me. Mm-hmm. And on a defense that you already have an Aiden on the left, and you put Aziz as a right outside linebacker, and then you've got DJ, obviously there, Aleem whenever he shows up, and then whoever we add on the right side, Josh Paschal currently is that guy. Now you're shooting Aziz to get after the quarterback, or you have a guy in pursuit against the Jaden Daniels, Jalen, the Hurts, the Josh Allen. You got a guy that can maintain that whole right side because of his speed and his ability. He's someone that likes to get his hands up and knock down passes too, which is I love. I love that when we see that. So what kind of happened to him, right? The offseason trade for Brian Burns with the Giants kind of turned Ojulari into a third wheel on the edge for the Giants. If Ojulari could have stayed healthy, it seemed likely that defensive coordinator Shane Bowen could find ways to kind of get him on the field. And this is kind of where I really love Aziz more. He would also qualify as a quality depth behind Burns or Kayvon Thibodeau, but again, you've got a stacked component here on the New York Giants defensive line. So in the 2024 season, it was the final audition for his rookie contract. His performance obviously will determine whether he remains a Giant, beyond 2024, or what kind of a contract he's going to get from the Giants or from another NFL team. Now, we know that Ojulari is expected to leave New York and explore options. He is going to hit free agency. The market for Ojulari may not be as big as what he had hoped. But then again, it could be a little bit bigger. But based on the information that I pulled, his early projected price tag is looking like a 1-year prove-it deal at $5 million. And now I have reviewed both Spotrac and Over the Cap. I have the premium subscriptions. And what I came up with was a little bit different. I came up with a 2-year, $15 million max deal or a 1-year, $8 million max deal, I would be good with either. And I think that he would probably be good with that to kind of reprove his career again. And then he'll get his max deal after this deal. So I think for us to evaluate why the Giants would move on, we have to look at what happened to the defense overall. It really began and ended with Wink Martindale. The Giants' defensive personnel had largely been selected for their fit in Martindale's aggressive man coverage, based blitz happy defense. Sound familiar? Sounds real familiar, doesn't it? It's exactly what the Lions have.
Yep.
We have a aggressive man coverage, based blitz happy defense. Those schemes require a very different skill set from the quarters cover 4 based zone scheme favored by none other than Shane Bowen while at Tennessee. Azeez Ojulari is a 4-3 backer, stuck in a 3-4 system. He was better in a Wink Martindale system. So I won't go through his snap counts, but he basically averaged about 60% of the snap count so far throughout his career. He's tallied up just a little bigger. He's tallied up, 22 sacks in his first 4 years. And I mean, he hardly played. Right? He played in 21, he played in all 17, started 13. So 17, 24, and then 22. So 46 games that he was available for in the first 4 seasons is what he has played through 4. And he's tallied 22 sacks. So about half a sack a game.
Mm-hmm. That's production.
Pretty solid production. So again, total tackles, 107, sacks, 22, 4 forced fumbles, 3 pass deflections, 3 fumble recoveries. He's played in 35 regular season games and 2 postseason games, so 37 regular season games. 24 stats, played in 11 games, 12 tackles, 6 sacks. Style of play, as I've said, he's known for his aggressiveness, his relentless pass rushing style, but it's more so his work on the edge, his work as an outside linebacker, his ability. Really, I mean, if you were to put him in a coverage zone type of a scheme, he can cover, right? He can cover these tight ends. He can make sure that the quarterbacks don't get outside and break contain. He's been very consistent when he's on the field, right? Often seeing a high snap count due to his effectiveness as a pass rusher. In the 24 season, he was on the practice field, or he was on the field for a significant portion of defensive plays, and it really showcased his duration and stamina. So he did have a kind of a bounce back year from that. Like I said, about his sacks, recorded 22 sacks during his career with 6 sacks in the 24 season alone. His sack count is among the highest for linebackers in the league, highlighting his impact on the defensive line. So why is Ojulari be a great fit for the Detroit Lions? Very simple. Pass rushing prowess. I mean, look, his ability to consistently pressure quarterbacks would be a huge asset for the Lions. His 22 sacks in a very limited amount of playing time demonstrates that. Youth, he's young, potential is high. At 24 years old, Ojulari has plenty of room to grow and improve. His aggressive style of play and relentless motor make him a player who can continue to develop and contribute. We have some of the better coaches in the league. We always have. And the new guys that we're bringing in, Calvin Shepard as our DC, clearly knows linebackers. So the type of play that they're going to be able to get out of Ojulari would be even that much better, in my opinion. Versatility. He has versatility as an outside linebacker, and it allows him to play in multiple roles on the defense. Up on the line, off the line, outside linebacker role. He can do it all. His impact, obviously adding a player of Ojulari's caliber would significantly bolster the Lions' pass rush and coverage abilities, making it more difficult for opposing offenses to execute the game plans. Conclusion for me on Azeez, I think he would be a fantastic addition to the Detroit Lions. It's that simple. He's going to be a cheaper option. I think that he would be a very formidable addition to this team from many different facets of the game. It's just, hey, can we get a deal done with them before New York tries to get a deal done with them? Because at $5 million, if that's what they're thinking they're going to get, or if that's all they think that he is worth, I don't know who wouldn't sign him for $5 million. I think that you sweeten the pot a little bit and you bring this guy in and you put him into your system and you turn him back into the the player that he can be. So that's my take on Aziz.
I hope his agent watches this show, because you sweeten the pot by you pitch him on the fit, you pitch him on. So if you were Brad Holmes and you offered him 1 year for 8 and his agent countered and said, no, I'll 2 for 15, you're saying yes.
Yeah, it looks like you guys are getting real close to the likes. Hold on, repeat that one more time. I'll turn off ads for the rest of the day. Repeat that one more time.
They're the numbers that you kind of use, but I guess my question was, so if you were pitching Azeez Ojulari to the Lions, you're talking to his agent, you say, hey, we will offer a 1 year, $8 million contract. And his agent says, okay, now he'll come to Detroit if you do 2 for 15.
Yeah.
What's your response? Done.
Yeah. I mean, $7.5 million a year. I mean, I would probably even give him the, 50, 60% guaranteed just to sweeten the pot. And the Lions have the money to do it. But again, now you're adding a guy that is a proven commodity in the NFL. He hasn't been able to put on a full display because of a few injuries, but these injuries haven't been extremely bad injuries, right? We're not talking ACLs or Achilles or quads or, a quad tear like DJ. So he's still relatively healthy. And like I said, he hasn't gone through all the car crashes. He's missed pretty much half of his career, it seems like. But that doesn't shy me away from him. I think that he's now stuck in a system that doesn't really fit what they brought him in originally to do. And that's why I think that New York could end up walking away, because they've gone to a different defensive style. And his original defensive style kind of fits Detroit. So in my opinion, I think it's a perfect opportunity. It's the buy low, it's low risk, high reward. I think that he would be a perfect fit with, Anzalone and Jack Campbell and Azeez Ojulari as our 3 main, starting linebackers. I think we're solid. And then you can keep a guy, Malcolm Rodriguez, give him an extra year to get healthy. If he's not going to be ready to go, because more than likely he's not going to be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Barnes, I'm not even sure when he's going to be back. Again, he's a free agent. So you'd have to work your magic. Do you really want to bring Derek Barnes back knowing that he's injured and a free agent? To me, that's the kind of a Brad Holmes move that you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did it with Emmanuel Mosley. Okay, well, we're only going to give him $1 million, but he never played.
Mm-hmm.
You wasted a roster spot. Those are the types of decisions I don't want to see.
Yep.
I don't want to see a wasted roster spot. Some guys that you don't want to give up, well, sometimes you just have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to.
And the other side of that too is, I guess the alternative, well, do you bring in a rookie? That's fine, but you want to have, this is a perfect fit. I'm going to be disappointed now if we don't get him based on everything that you've painted with this, because you bring in a guy that's got experience, but still young. There's so much upside. He complements the team well. I think, you sold me. I think it'd be a perfect fit.
Well, I don't need to sell you. I need to sell Brad Holmes.
Well, hopefully, let's chat. Does anybody have his contact? Can we get it Can we get it for Will?
I'll just send him a letter.
There you go.
So I'll send him a video breakdown on a thumb drive.
Blue. Yeah.
Right. All right. So I'm going to transition off of this. I'm going to do a video later today talking about free agent. We'll get into the defensive line. Did you have a couple of names for us? So quick rundown of defensive line free agents that maybe you thought, or edge or linebacker free agents that you thought might be good fits for the Lions. I know it won't be very long, but any names that we should be thinking about?
Yeah. I've got to go back to the drawing board to flesh it out to the level that you did for sure. But just on a quick one, Poona Ford, Javon Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas were guys that I thought could be fits for the Lions. And on the edge, you mentioned one, Baron Browning, Carl Lawson, Emmanuel Ogba. Those are some names that I just, on a quick search, thought could be fits here, but it was kind of along the lines of what you were thinking, where it's not a Myles Garrett, it's not the main, prize or the sexiest name, but they could be the right puzzle pieces to fit the current roster. So I'm definitely gonna have to go back and dig deeper into why these guys would be better fits for the Lions, as you did with Azeez.
Well, I will say this about Poona. So that to me is an interesting prospect, and I can't imagine that the Bolts are going to give up on Poona. especially when you look at what his potential cap number could be. And again, according to all of the different analysts out there, they're only projecting about a $3.5 million 1-year prove-it deal for him.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at what he did this last season, 80.3 run defense grade, he ranked third among all interior defenders. He had 25 quarterback pressures. So you're exactly spot on that this is the type of guy that we need, not only for depth, but McNeil is probably not going to be ready to start the season. This is a guy that you lure to Detroit, that you pay him a little bit more than what everybody else is because you know that you need him. And even if you're paying a guy, an extra $1 million more than he's worth, which I know is easier said than done, at least you have a guy that is extremely good at what he does and could be an instant hit next to DJ Reader. God forbid something happens to DJ Reader. Now you have more depth than what you need. I'm not so sure that Levi makes it back to this team. As much as I like Levi and Josh Paschal, something is just, I got this red flag for Levi right now. He had a great season. He maintained his health throughout the season. He actually was playing pretty well. And I'm just not so sure that he's going to come back. I'm not sure yet. I'll get back to that more once we get a little bit closer to free agency when I put all my final predictions out. But I love Poona Ford. I think that is a great opportunity for the Lions. What was the other one that you mentioned?
The two other, Javon Kinlaw and Solomon Thomas, both played with the Jets last year.
So Javon Kinlaw, I thought, yeah, he was with the Jets. Any idea what he's worth?
Let me see what he is projected at.
I don't know that Aaron Glenn is going to want to allow, some of these players to leave. So obviously a defensive tackle, unrestricted free agent in 2024. He played for the 49ers in 2020 and then the Jets in 2024. 6'5", 319, great size, still young enough. He's a 2020 first round, 14th overall pick. I can imagine that he's going to command a lot of money. Played in all 17 games in 23 and the Super Bowl in 23, so he's got great experience there. Had 3.5 sacks, 25 total tackles, 70.3 pass rush grade in 23, and in 2024, career high 4.5 sacks. The 49ers declined the 5th-year option on Kinlaw's rookie contract. So then he went to the Jets. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is he worth?
Let's see. He was projected 1 year, $5 million.
That's it?
Yep. And then he was. Big thing with him was, like you said, with his playing all 17 games, I'm just looking for people that have game experience, have some level of proven production that, like last year we brought in, a Davenport, the fit made sense. And it was a weird way that he got hurt, but were you surprised when he got hurt? That's the problem. We bring in these supplemental pieces. We need production out of them.
So I think that Davenport was a product of Paris Johnson. I don't think that Davenport was a product of injury history. I did the video on it. I think it's clear as day that it was an intentional injury. I think that Davenport was playing great, and he was. I mean, he was playing great. Had he not been injured in that game, I think that he would have went on, to have a really good season in Detroit. Maybe he gets injured later in the season, whatever. But that injury was not his fault. Back to Kinlaw, though. Again, according to Over the Cap, the premium rank on him is $7.25 million APY with an OTC valuation of $6.3 million. So I can't imagine that's all he's going to command. As far as his game history, in 2020, he played in 14. In 21 and 22, he only played in 4 and 6 games. Not sure why. He was injured in 2 games each of 2020, 21, and 22. He was uninjured in 23 and 24, played in all 17 games. He is a mid-level rotational guy, so he's a 50%er as far as snap counts. He averages about 3.5 sacks a season when he's playing. Again, another great rotational piece. Guy with massive size. I like it. I like Poona Ford too. I mean, there's the question, right? What are the Lions going to be able to bring in, with our free agents when you're talking about the defensive line? I mean, let's walk through this for a moment. Let's walk through, and I know you just let me know when you got to go, but let's walk through, the contract situation for the Lions. So McNeil, in 2023 had a somewhat of a breakout season again, or he had a breakout season in 2023. He had an okay year in 2024. He had 3.5 sacks, 38 quarterback hits, 45 total pressures. He had a 79.6 overall grade, which I think was down from the previous year. I think he had a better grade the year before, if memory serves me right. Obviously, he signed an extension, so he's going to be around. His cap hit's only $6.2 million this year. He has $24 million in remaining guarantees. We have DJ Reader signed. Levi O, he suited up for 16 to 17 games. He started 10 of those in 24. He recorded 1.5 sacks, 29 quarterback hurries, 45 total pressures, and he had a 69.4 overall mark. So he had a really good season for his first full season playing. Now, he is set to be an unrestricted free agent this season. Then Pat O'Connor, he is also an unrestricted free agent. He's probably going to walk. As good of a season that he was having, he only had 9 quarterback hurries, 10 pressures in 12 games. He had a couple of good games, but it wasn't enough. Had he been on a full roster and had the benefit of a full healthy roster around him and he was in playing, probably would have been a better ideal situation. Mekhi Wingo, obviously he's signed. So going into the season, we have DJ Reader and we have Ali McNeil. Beyond that, Levi, Pat O'Connor, they are unrestricted free agents. Mekhi Wingo will be back. Kyle Pecco is a free agent. Broderick Martin, we have him. Miles Adams, he'll be a restricted free agent, so we're going to have to put a tender on him. So if he were to receive a contract from another team, the Lions will have the ability to match that offer if we do tender him. Chris Smith, he did sign a futures contract. So right now, all we have for defensive line is Chris Smith, Broderick Martin, Mekhi Wingo, Levi O, DJ Reader, Ali McNeil, and where's Josh Pascal at? Why is he not listed on here? Unless they moved him to edge for some reason. He's a hybrid player, but we also have Josh Pascal. So in my opinion, there's room to grow, right? You're missing Ali McNeil for a large portion of the season. You're going to go to the season with DJ Reader, Levi, and Mekhi as your starters? And possibly Broderick Martin, who we haven't seen enough of yet? I think the answer is no. I think you have to bring in a guy at a minimum of a Poona Ford or a Javon Kinlaw. At a minimum, you have to. At a minimum. Now, that's not the end-all, be-all. I mean, there's some other guys that are available here, but if we were to look at defensive tackles on the free agent market, there's a few more that we could talk about. And I'll do some more of that later. So you had at least get into one more item that you wanted to talk about today. So looks like you had a couple of things on Jared Goff and Matt Miller. I'll just go to Matt Miller. What did Matt Miller do for us in his mock draft?
Yeah, let me get that pulled up here really quick. Matt Miller. Let me pull this up here. Give me one sec. Sorry. So his mock draft, and I'm sure everybody knows who Matt Miller is, but after the Senior Bowl, he has in his mock draft in round 1, assuming the Lions stay at pick 28, Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon. Matt Miller says the Lions will have hard decisions to make in free agency with guard Kevin Zeitler and defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike, both on expiring contracts. But general manager Brad Holmes should beef up the interior defensive line whether Levi O returns or not. Harmon had 6 sacks at Oregon, along with 35 pressures. He was ranked 4th at his position in this year's draft, according to ESPN. Matt Miller is right to point out the need for defensive line help for the Detroit Lions. Aleem McNeil's injuries last year and the uncertainty around who will be returning next season put immediate pressure on finding viable NFL-ready help like Harmon, and that's exactly what you've been saying, Will. We love Aleem McNeil. He got a nice contract last year. He was playing great, but I'll never forget that image of him walking off the field in Buffalo, against Buffalo, because that had impacts obviously last year, but you knew that was going to bleed into this year. And then round 2, Matt Miller mocks, barring any movement between now and the draft, Miller has the Lions selecting Georgia center Jared Wilson with pick number 60. He writes, Wilson has been battle-tested in the SEC and would be ready to step in immediately as a starter if needed. Wilson ranked 3rd at his position in this year's draft, according to ESPN. Miller cited the future of Lions center Frank Ragnow as the driver behind going for a center this early in the draft. Ragnow will be 28 at the start of the 25-26 season. He's still so young. And reiterated before last season that he had no plans on retiring despite often dealing with nagging injuries. This Lions era has been built on the strength of its offensive line, so investing early in a starting level talent wouldn't be the wrong line of thinking. Though this team has several needs on defense, this draft is loaded with potential talent at edge, and this front office has not shown itself to be afraid of picking the players they want regardless of what round they are operating in. So, and then he points out the Lions regained some draft capital following the exit of defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, opening the door to reload with some of the young talent that could help them bounce back next season. So Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon in round 1 and Georgia center Jared Wilson in round 2 are players that Matt Miller sees could be some of the newest Lions come April.
So he went defensive line, you said, for Matt Miller went Matt Miller is related to somebody, right?
Yeah, Austin Cunningham of Talking Football.
Yeah, I thought so. Derek Harmon, I get it. Defensive tackle, I understand it. But at pick 28, I mean, here's where I would pivot. Everyone's talking about edge, and I think no matter what the Lions do, even if we bring in an edge in free agency, which is possible, I'm going to throw a name at you guys that I've just started watching tape on last night. I got to tell you, this dude looks good so far. So far. Now, he's not my final because he's not the prototypical size. Now, maybe he could fit as an outside linebacker. Maybe he's just a smaller edge player. But Donovan Ezrakow, watch him. Go watch his tape. Looks great. Love his energy, but he's only 6'2", 250. So that's what makes me think that he might be more of an outside linebacker size. However, Hassan Reddick has been able to do it at 6 foot 225. So it can be done. If he has the speed to play outside linebacker, wonderful. Because his true pass set rush grade was a 90.6. And in against the defense, against the run was an 83.6. His pass rush grade overall was a 90.4. In all 3 years at Boston College, he's had phenomenal grades. Last year, 14 sacks. 14 sacks, even though sacks are not the main measurement, right? The other guy that I really loved and why I would pivot, again, going edge with that first pick, is the roster roulette and backfilling. Guys that can give us, an immediate impact. And this guy is prototypical size. And that is Landon Jackson. 6'7", 280. Really loved what he has been able to do. 7 sacks the last 2 seasons. 4 in his first year. He's had steady improvement. Still a lot left on the bone here. A lot of meat left on the bone for Landon Jackson. I think he's just scratching the surface. Now, I know that the other name, Jack Sawyer, has been kind of mocked to the Lions. 6'5", 260. He's just another Aiden style of defensive end, right? He's all speed. He's a speed rusher. I wouldn't be afraid of adding another speed rusher, but the reason why you have a speed and a guy that crushes the can is
guy.
Yeah, your power guy. You got to have a power guy that can really move that line, and then your speed guys to get back there and get to these guys in the backfield. So that's where I would think that you would want to add more of a power guy as opposed to a speed guy. Unless Aiden is having some trouble getting back, then you're going to have to go speed guy. And that may be where you see that we do bring in an edge, because maybe Aiden's having, a little bit of trouble getting back. We just don't know. I mean, I think that we would be sorely mistaken not to consider the fact that Aiden may not be the same, or it may just take him a minute to get back. All of those things are on the table right now because we are in that mode of we don't know what we don't know. We don't know.
Yep.
So, as far as defensive line at the end of the first round, now I just started reviewing tapes. So the one guy that I did like was Darius Alexander. I did like him over Harmon. 6'4", 310. I mean, just great numbers for this guy out of Toledo. He is the Quinton Mitchell, right, of 2025. 90.2 grade. 4 sacks last year, 7 the year before. Grades consistently going up. And you can see it in the tape. And in the big games, he shows up. In the big games that the big teams that he goes against, being in that division, he shows up. So, and he's someone that plays heavily in the B gap. And so when you look at what the Lions need, it's a B gap defensive tackle. The reason why last year DJ Reader was brought in and everything that I was mocking to the Lions is I said, if we're going to bring in a defensive lineman, it's going to be a B gap guy. That's what DJ Reader was a B gap guy. Well, Darius Alexander, 90% of his reps in the B gap. So when I get down to breaking down tape and breaking these guys down, I'm looking at all of these things. Now, same thing with Derek Harmon. Primary B gap guy, but in 2024, he was over the tackle on 188 reps and he was in the B gap 353. So he's more of like a 75-25 guy, but he's still a B gap guy. So it's another good pick, and I can see why Matt Miller would slate him towards the Lions because of the fact that his familiarity with the B gap, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, it certainly does. I could probably go on for another hour or so. I don't know if I will. I might. I know you probably got to head off to work, so.
Yeah, I'll head out here, but you're on fire today, man. You're on fire every day. I keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
All right. Well, I'll catch up with you tonight, and then we'll be back ready tomorrow. What is tomorrow? What are we doing tomorrow? Well, tomorrow's rounds 3 and 4.
Yep, and I've started some work on that. I'm excited for it. I'll be ready to go. I hope everybody here has a good day. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Thank you for supporting Will and the Rocked On Detroit Lions show, Rocked On Podcast Network. This is the place to be. I hope everybody has an awesome day.
All right, Riley, you too, man. Go sell some RVs, buddy.
Got it.
All right, we'll see.
Thanks, guys. See ya.